There we go. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm just joined here today with my friend Bradley. I guess I've known him, since I've moved to the United
Yep.
States. Bradley is a family friend of ours, has actually worked a bit with my mother when we first got here. Has a very, very robust knowledge of public school education. You've worked as a teacher, academic advisor. If I've missed something, Bradley, please, please inform us and maybe briefly just introduce yourself.
Sure. Um, as Andrea said, I'm Bradley Hofstetter. I am currently working as a student success coach at Polk State College's collegiate high school program. So I'm essentially like a college advisor, but I work within the guidance office of the high school, helping students transition from high school into what we call dual enrollment courses at the college, and then they finish out their high school program and then also receive their associate's degree when they graduate high school. So it's an advanced program. Um, as you mentioned, I've worked in many different areas at different colleges and universities here in the state of Florida. I've also been a classroom teacher, taught science for a number of years, and I've worked in the financial aid departments at Southeastern University, student services at University of South Florida. I've also worked in the public library system and the university library system a little bit too. So information's always kind of been my thing. So in the realm of education too. So I can speak for a lot of different sides of education and help navigate on these things. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I will highlight a lot of that in the conversation.
Oh, perfect. Actually, you have the perfect background because, not only have you, like you said, taught in public schools, but you've also, you're transitioning children from, school to the community college system and getting their associate's degree. A lot of people, from our community don't really know about any of this stuff. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. And if we don't touch on that, perhaps we can talk again. Or if
Mhm.
people have more
Absolutely.
questions, we can maybe we can share your email,
Mhm.
etc. But Bradley, the first thing I really wanted to touch on is if you can explain to people, our community, what's the difference between I would say the different sectors of, public school education. So, people hear words like charter schools and so forth. If you can, kind of run us through that, that'd be great.
Sure. So touching on our main setup here in the US, our public school system is funded federally and state and local tax money that provides a main opportunity for education for all the children in the specific school district area that you would live in. It's free for everyone to attend. And so that's our main focus, and that system is very robust. There's a lot of opportunity within there. However, I will caution is if you go into a community that is not as wealthy, the school system will is based on tax money and things.
Right,
So you might not have as much opportunity as, like, say, here in Florida. I'm in a more rural county,
right,
so we have a good school system, but we don't have like the top tier of like everything because of our tax basis. When you go to like the coastal communities, they have a little bit higher taxing, and more of a rich, affluent area. So then you'll have schools that have a little bit more like in regards to like technology and programs and things. Um, Now, within that public system, you have like a traditional high school. We have ninth through 12th grade.
okay.
I think um, from South Africa, it's like based on the British system, I think.
Yes, that's correct. So they would have something like they go from primary school to
Mhm,
high school. So the middle
mhm.
school doesn't exist. Essentially, you would
Gotcha.
transition, I guess, what would it be? The end of middle school was that sixth grade or
For us, middle
yeah.
school goes from sixth grade to eighth grade.
Eighth grade. Okay,
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a little bit different. I think, that's something that people should take note of. Like there's three different you're going to deal with three
Yeah.
different public schools and they may be
Hmm.
different. And I've also seen, even in my school district, that some of the high schools are ranked very high. Some of the middle schools are not so good. So,
Mhm.
that's also something you may want to research. And I know I've put some of this stuff on X, but definitely do your research. Like, Bradley mentioned, some of them, depending on where you end up living, may not have as much funding available for certain technologies, etc. And okay, so in terms of a charter school,
Mhm.
what is a charter school?
So a charter school, they are set up separately from the public school system. There are like private charters, as I would
Okay.
call them, and there's also public charters. So the school that I'm working at is what's called a public charter. So
Okay.
we integrate within the public school system, but we're separate as a charter school because we have our own legal charter and our own mission and focus built
Mhm.
into that legal charter. So there's some things that we can do that a regular public school would not be able to do because they have the oversight of the district. A
Okay.
charter school will have many times like a governing board that oversees them and a leadership structure that's individual to that school.
I see.
So, um, since we're a public charter, we do have access to federal and public funding. If it's a private situation, they have access to some of those things in different legal ways, but in some things they do not have access.
I
So,
see.
for our students with a public charter, um, our student will have the same record system in regards to grades and testing and everything as a student in the regular public school district.
Mhm.
And so like I go to trainings in our district's offices and things. So I'm a part of it, but I'm not like held to the same as a teacher or someone works into the offices in our school district. So we have to be very mindful of the verbiage that's being used when
Yeah.
we're looking at schools, whether it's a traditional high school within a public school district. If it's a charter school, is it a public charter that
Mhm.
connects to the district and they have
Right.
their own special mission, or are they total private and they have a private governing board and all their stuff is focused in a different way. So with us, we're actually our charter is connected also to state statute because in the state of Florida, every public community college, what we call state colleges now, they've changed
Mhm.
the wording just a little bit. Um, they have to have some type of collegiate high school program, and it's a
Okay.
more advanced high school program. So that's how that charter was set up. Now, I do want to mention too. Within the public school districts, you will hear the name magnet schools.
Right. Right.
So that's not quite like a charter school, but they do have specific focuses and missions. So a magnet school might be a technology driven STEM
Mm.
type magnet school, things like that. Also, another name that's within this conversation is academies. So you'll
Mm.
have a magnet school that might be like an academy of such and
Okay.
such. So, like here in the Polk County School District, we have some different academies. We have like a military academy,
I see.
and that's connected to the traditional Bartow High School in Bartow, Florida. And so that's the Summerlin Academy. And so it's kind of like a military style ROTC training school.
I see.
Not
Okay.
all the students go into the military, but that's the style of teaching that they do, and they do regular ROTC exercises and things. And then we have internet, what they call international baccalaureate programs or
Mm.
IB schools. And then that's housed within usually a traditional high school, but it's like a separate program within it.
I've
Um,
heard about that IB
mhm.
program. I'm not too familiar with that. Could you maybe just do a little quick description of that?
Sure. So it's I don't know a lot about it because I haven't taught in it or been like connected work wise.
Right.
But what in a real quick synopsis of it, it's a specialized advanced program that prepares a student to move to higher education.
Right.
It is a international type high school diploma. The student goes through very rigorous coursework.
Mm-hmm.
So it mirrors the regular high school experience, but takes it to the next level.
I
And
see.
then those courses, a student can take those courses, and then they at the very end they take a test, and they're when they pass it, they're awarded an international baccalaureate high school diploma, and that's very portable. So internationally, so to say, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very recognized in certain situations in higher ed at universities. But also that student can take those courses they took in high school that are IB courses and get college credit for them.
Okay, you see, that's
Yeah.
that's quite useful, I would imagine. Yeah.
Mhm. And there's another program that's connected to that same type of thought, and it's called Cambridge High
Okay.
School Program. So
I
that
think
those
I've
are
heard of
two.
Cambridge in the South African setting. This may be
Yeah.
something that you could do in terms of homeschooling. I'm not 100% sure, but I've definitely heard of Cambridge as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the two programs that do have an international connection, that are in our public school systems. And so if a family is interested in a high school that has those programs, I'd
Mm,
highly recommend them. Are they a fit for every student? No, because they're very advanced, and so
right.
some students need that little bit of extra time in a traditional high school course. But just know that is available as an option within the
Possibility.
public system, and it's all free. And there's just a lot of good opportunity when the student is wanting to seek a university education afterwards.
Yeah,
And
100%.
there's also prep programs in the elementary areas, and the middle school areas, for these programs too. So this education conversation, it can get very
Yeah, it can get super broad, I can imagine, but like I said again, super helpful because people are starting from zero. They want to know what's the deal with public schools,
Mhm.
and really that's incredibly helpful. Um, Bradley, to your knowledge, do you know how a public school would determine, for instance, the level of education that an immigrant student would come into? So if they come from seventh grade in South
Yeah.
Africa or any other country, how would the school determine their level and be able to place them in the correct grade?
So usually every district has a an office that is over school records and transcripts, and so they usually have an evaluator, person or two within a district that will go through all of the transcripts from out of county, out of state, international, and evaluate them and do equivalencies. In certain instances, there are companies here in the U.S. that will evaluate what they would call a foreign or international
Mhm.
transcript, that is of a different language or just from a different type of system. And then they equate all of the
Right.
courses and the grades to the US system. So we do that also at the college university level too. Sometimes those services do cost some money. I will say, especially like a college level one,
Yeah,
it can be pretty expensive. But a lot of times the school districts do things in house if they can.
I would imagine
Now,
so. Yeah.
so what I usually encourage students and families to really have a good conversation with the contact for that district.
Yeah.
Get to know them. Have their direct number and email, and then let them help you navigate what they're requesting, and then stay on top of things, because when we're talking about school districts, we're talking about tens of thousands of students, and so you want to be that person that's advocating.
Yes.
So don't ever think that somebody has got your best interests in mind. Because in
Yeah.
education, we're many times we're a few people within a department, and we're trying to get everything done, but sometimes things do slip. And so
Yeah, I
if
can
we
imagine
miss
that.
something, we are relying on you, the parent or the student, to say, hey, Mr. Hofstetter, did you miss my file? I didn't get my email back. And then we'll put you back in the queue, and know that we have to finish things. So,
Finish it.
um,
Yeah.
so a lot of times, just a simple review of a transcript, a grade can be inputted. But if something's very vastly different, they're going to have to go through evaluation and compare and contrast, and see what's going on with it. And like I said, sometimes a company will have to do that. Now, that's like the public system. Now,
Yeah.
charters and private can do a whole different thing. Because I was discussing with our school counselor today,
Hmm.
about this because I wanted to get her take on it. And one of the things that she did mention is that there is an opportunity where a transcript could possibly, in a charter situation or private school situation, they could look at the student as like a homeschooled student,
Right, right.
and look at what those
Kind
levels
of
are within the.
curriculum, what
Mhm.
they've been
Yeah.
doing. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that would
And
make
then
sense to me. Yeah.
yeah, and they would just enter that in the system, in their record system that way, and then apply the grade that is given, or look at the determination of what would be the equivalent within the U.S. system, and then just move on.
Right.
Now, there are other things. A school might have a student take a standardized test,
Hmm.
to make sure you're on level and things like that. And then once that test is done, the student can just move on and be placed at the appropriate grade level. So I wouldn't stress too much, as long as the records are very plain and solid.
Yes.
If we're
Yes.
coming from a public system across the pond, as we say,
Yes.
to us here. So.
That's perfect. I think people just have, a little bit of anxiety about, what do we do? What documentation
Mhm.
we need. So I figured, we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I always stress, have multiple copies of your school records, anything that's pertinent to curriculum that you might have on hand,
Right, right.
contacts to the school, like emails and stuff in this situation would probably be the best instead of phone numbers. And have like a little packet, and keep everything safe. And then the big thing is if at all possible, don't give your originals, unless it's a specific evaluation where they have to have
Right,
an original sealed document,
right.
that's like embossed and signed off. Try to give copies, so that, because things do get lost, or scan something
Absolutely.
and email it. So always keep your records that way, because you never want to be without your official documents in this process. Because I have to say, there's a lot of times stuff gets lost, and
It
I work
does.
with
It does.
students constantly about this, especially within the university and college system.
I 100% agree with you on that. I think I kind of went through that process myself, transitioning from university in South Africa, moving over to Florida Southern, having these official, sealed documents sent to FSC. Yeah, it's always good to have some copies, that's for sure. You know how it goes, just, admin, things get
Yep.
lost. So, yeah. So, Bradley, the next thing I really wanted to ask you about is, what's up with the SATs, the ACTs? I know a lot of our members have had questions about that. What are they? How important are they? And, how can they prepare for it? Obviously, they're coming from a different system. They're going to be entering, the public school system in the US. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So these are entrance exams mainly used for college entrance. So these are standardized tests that go over your English language writing and reading skills and your mathematics skills. ACT does touch on science a little bit, but it's more of interpreting data. In a science topic. So they're not going to ask you, what are the cell organelles and how to do
Mm,
chemistry and all that kind of stuff. So that's where ACT takes the science component, and it's just, can you process your data charts and stuff within that thinking realm. But these tests, I always tell students, stateside, these are the keys that unlock the door to college admissions. So these are very, very important. There are benchmarks that you need to meet in regards to the points. And I would not want a student to bypass these tests at all.
yeah,
Even a student
definitely.
coming in to the US, that's, let's say, 10th, 11th grade
Yep,
in our
yep,
system, I would encourage them to go ahead and take them. Okay. The
yeah.
reason is because I can speak for our district, our state, but also other states and school districts if someone moves somewhere other than Florida. These tests are nationally standardized, so that student can go in and pass at a higher level the math sections, the reading and writing sections and stuff. And then they'll get an equivalency mark on their school records for high school so that it shows that they have that
Right,
knowledge.
right.
So that also is something that we use for graduation requirements. If a student is having a little challenge in a class and they take that test and it shows that they're at that math level, that score can be used. Um, Here in Florida, we also have another test that's used for that type of thing, the equivalencies and stuff. It's called the PERT test. It's called the post secondary education
Hmm,
readiness test.
okay.
And there's other tests like that out there, but that's one that's some if you're um, coming into like the Florida system, you might hear PERT.
Art,
That's what it
okay.
stands for, and that's something that is used in different situations. But I would say taking ACT, SAT is worth the money. Don't wait till you're like fixing to finish your high school time and go to college. Go ahead and take it 10th, 11th grade and get that score established. And then you can kind of know where you're at in regards to testing and then keep working on it. Because
So
it
you can retake the test?
you can take it as many times as you want.
Okay, that's
Um,
perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they'll have those waiting times, as like with all tests. But I always tell students test early, test often, because it is not only something that's used for like high school to show your levels
Yeah.
in regards to things, but it's also opening the door
Oops.
for admissions.
I think I lost you a little
Oh,
bit there. Can you?
okay.
I
Yeah,
got your
sure.
voice back. Never mind. All good. Keep
All
going.
right, cool. So just the last couple seconds, I guess I need to revisit. So the ACT SAT test is something that's not only used to help out with equivalencies in regards to scores for math and reading and writing, and it's used for admissions, but also it is something that is used for scholarships. So
Okay,
this
perfect.
that's a big thing I always impress on students is if you want scholarships, you need to really do well on these tests because you can qualify for merit scholarships because your academics. They look at your high school courses and what you did in those courses, but when you get a high score on the ACT or
Mhm.
SAT, that can give you an institutional scholarship from that college or university. Also, it can open the door if a student is desirous to go into an honors program. So
I
there's
see.
cutoff levels to get into an honors program. So you have to test high enough. So these tests are so important. I can't stress it enough. It's worth the investment. It's for these tests. So they're not a
Absolutely.
lot. They're anywhere from $65 to $80, depending on where you take the test and what the fees are. So it's very very much worth it. So taking time and buying a study book and studying hard, getting a tutor to tutor you,
Yeah, yeah.
it helps immensely in this whole process.
So I actually had another question from one of our members, and it seems to kind of fit in nicely with this. She said her daughter is in 11th grade now, so 11th grade in South Africa. If by some chance they, end up immigrating by the end of the year, she would have finished her high school, degree in South Africa. And she was wondering, how would she navigate this? Should she try and take the SAT still, or, just go off of, her transcript, her grades in South Africa? I felt like if there's any way that she could take that test, it would be helpful. Like my situation was I was already in university, so they went off of my university grades to kind of place me here. But it seems like it would open more doors for you if by some chance you could take the SAT. I don't know if you can repeat a grade over here. But if you have any knowledge on that, please share.
Yeah, so in this instance, just to kind of confirm, the student will have finished their total high school and be graduated and moving.
Yeah, it seems like that would have been the situation. So like I guess
Sure.
she's in her 11th year now. So chances are that she may be all the way done or halfway done. I don't know. Because
Okay.
in South Africa, the school year is from January to December, if you know,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the student is fully graduated and they come here to the U.S., then they will need to definitely take one of those tests,
Yeah.
if at all possible, to kind of get a stateside establishment of things. But the number one thing is they need to talk to the university or college that they're seeking after, and talk
Mhm.
to the International Student Office for admissions, because they'll guide them through the whole process, and making it so much easier. So having those in-depth conversations, where are you coming from, what's your
Right.
grade levels, et cetera, have those transcripts sent to that specific school. Um, that'll be key in the conversation. Now, another thing that I do advise students who are in transition, and moving, even students stateside, don't rush. Take a gap time, as
Yeah.
as they
Yeah.
say. Um, Another good term is a growth year instead of a
Yeah.
gap year. Because when we say gap year, it's like, I'm just sitting
I'm
on the
not doing
couch. And,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a growth year would be a good thing to do, to just transition to here in the U.S., get comfortable with the culture, get plugged into the local community, maybe
Yes.
do some volunteer stuff with a nonprofit. Get, if the person is of faith, get connected to their faith community, their local
Yes.
church, etc., and then kind of build that relationship to where they're going to be, and then decide: am I going to stay within the local community and go to the college or university in my area, or do I want to seek somewhere and kind of like go away from my family a little bit and explore, the U.S. And then and then during that time, the student will have more options, to take the required admissions test,
Yeah.
go visit schools in person, talk to people in person, get all those nice shiny glossy handouts and with all the nice pictures, and let people give their speech on why their school is the best, and then have those conversations with family throughout that whole year.
Right.
And then you make a more informed decision. You're comfortable with your decision, and you're not pressured,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
it's being pressured in this. I always tell students, keep in mind that college and universities, you're paying money for it,
Yeah,
or
and it's
you're
very expensive.
yeah. And so you are getting a commodity, which is your education. So you want the most for what you're paying out. So be a very informed and aware shopper. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. No, I
yeah.
think it's a very important decision, and I've always been a fan or, advocate for gap years. I
Mhm.
think, especially coming as an immigrant, like you said, getting plugged into the community, getting comfortable, if you're in a church, joining a church, even working maybe a part-time job, to kind of get an idea of, what's really going on. In terms of community colleges, I know you've obviously have like a ton of experience with that. Is that something that you would, recommend to, to our communities? Could you explain a little
Yeah,
bit about like what are they, and how do they fit into, the university setting, as a whole?
sure. So here in the U.S., we have so many colleges and universities, and our public system of education at the secondary level here, we have what we call our community colleges. Some are called state colleges. They just change the name a little bit because they offer a little bit more degrees. But the community college is built so that someone within around 30 miles or so can have access to a college education. And the community colleges are mainly focused on, like what I received, a 2-year associate's degree.
Hmm.
And that will traditionally take you 2 calendar years. It's a total of 60 college credits. And that particular degree is usually called an Associate of Arts and Liberal Arts, because it's
Hmm.
meaning it's a very broad general education.
Right,
Those are
right.
general education credits that the university requires a student to have in their freshman and sophomore year. So that's one degree, because it's helping the local students get a start, get a taste of
Yeah,
college,
yeah.
and they get ready to transfer to finish their last 2 years, their junior and senior year at university for
Yes.
their focused degree, whether it's psychology, biomedical, business, etc.
Whichever you want to go into.
Yes. Now, there's another degree that the community colleges have, and it's Associate of Science. And so there's also another one called Associate of Applied Science. Now, these two degrees are career focused degrees. They range anywhere from 60 college credits within a 2 year span. In a traditional, you can take longer than that because you can go part time, you know.
Right.
Um, but sometimes they span out to about 75 credits, like
Mm-mm.
a associate's degree in nursing. Um, Students can also get degrees in business. They can get degrees in criminal justice and become like a law enforcement officer, a fire officer for to be a fireman or firewoman. You know, don't want to
Paramedic, I
be
think, as
gender.
well.
Paramedic
Yes.
also, and also a lot of what we called allied health degrees are at the local community college. So if
Right.
someone wants to work in like respiratory therapy,
Mm.
physical therapy, occupational therapy, cardiovascular technicians, like when someone gets like a stent put in,
Oh, of course.
and
Yes.
so they assist the doctor in those procedures. If you go get an X-ray done, there's a degree
Protects.
here
Yeah.
for the radiography techs. Someone needs to have like a diagnostic sonography scan.
Mm-hmm.
You scan your lungs or your liver, or maybe for a lady if you're pregnant having a child.
Right.
Those types of degrees are at the community college. So because it's meeting a need of the community.
Right.
So there's a
Right.
lot of
Right.
great degrees like that, and we do stuff that's like non-medical. Like we have business. We've got hospitality, like if someone wants to work in the restaurant or the hotel industry, because we're in Central Florida with all the theme parks and things. So there's a lot of things. So usually the degrees are slightly different between each community college,
Right.
depending upon the community's need. So so it's a great spot to get your college experience started because you're saving
Yeah.
a lot of money. Like
Yep.
right
Yep.
now, our college that I work at here, Polk State College, we're about I think $114
Mm.
US per credit hour versus a
That's
state.
significantly lower.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can just think of, I mean, I went to a
Hmm.
private college, but then I went to USF, but I
Hmm.
think the credits, I'm not sure what they are now, but they may have been like $400 or $500 a credit
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a university can start at around 250 or so for a
Hmm.
bachelor's, up to 500 plus for master's and doctoral.
Yes.
So significant savings. So I always tell students, if you're comfortable, with your family, and even if someone wants to get their own apartment and work a part-time job and do whatever,
Yeah.
if you like the community you're in and you just want to get what we call a soft start and
Yeah.
see if college is right for you. This is
Right.
the key conversation.
Exactly.
And then do some courses, maybe finish out a full associate's 2 year degree, as we would say, and then decide whether you want to take it to the next level. But you have a terminal degree, as we call it in education. It's a complete degree
100%.
that's
Yeah.
in the market. You could go with associate's degree and get like a mid-level manager job,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
decide later, I'll get into your career and like, oh, I'll get my bachelor's degree a little bit later, and that's totally fine,
Yeah.
because you might work the job and say, okay, the degree I need is not the one I thought when I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
19. I'm 23 now and I'm working this job, and I realize I need this other degree to advance. And so sometimes it's really nice. So there's a grocery company that we have here in Florida called Publix.
Mm.
It's big in the southeast of the United States, and their corporate office is here. And so a lot of our students in high school get a part-time job at that grocery store, and then they get incentives and stuff, and then they graduate high school and they start working full time, and then that company will give them the opportunity to get reimbursed to go get their business degree. And so a number of our students
Right.
have went into that and stayed in, become a manager in the grocery store, or go into the corporate office and have a full career in the corporate office realm. So there's a lot of cool things that a student can do. It doesn't have to be straight from finishing their high school program into
Yep.
university.
Yep.
Um, And
I
so,
think that's very important for people to understand. I've been a very big advocate of community college just from my own experiences. I never did that route, but if I could redo it, I absolutely would because like you said, if you it's kind of like a soft start, low stake. You will end up with a degree, but you won't end up with a lot of debt and you can work a part-time job and for somebody who's an immigrant, I think that's perfect because you're learning about what's going on, right? I mean, even just for, regular Americans, no one really knows what they want to do,
yeah,
and it's too expensive to just kind of jump into something.
yeah.
You're going to go to a university and think about it, take gen ed classes at four,
Mhm.
five, six, $700 a credit hour. I mean, it sounds like a really bad idea.
Mhm.
Um, but in
And
terms of, I don't know, Bradley, if you have any knowledge about the Bright Futures Scholarship, this is something that, you could be awarded from public school, as I understand it.
so, in my school, we've had a number of students from out of country. We've had a number of students like from Canada and other areas and
Yeah,
stuff. And it depends on the visa situation, what
yeah.
type of visa your family has, and so on and so on. So, our flagship school, University of Florida, I've reached out to our state department about this, and I've also got some communications from
Hmm.
our main university, or what we call our flagship university. That's kind of like the head of our whole system. And I just get a convoluted answer. I feel
Yeah.
because it's like they always kind of kick the can, or as we say, or push the
Yeah.
it off to the other person. Um, but what I've been told is that if a student has went through our system
Yeah.
and then they apply to the university, get accepted, and they meet the requirements. It's up to the university whether the university, the public university, will
Yeah.
certify them, et cetera. So it's just kind of one of those things. Like I have a partial answer that I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
halfway
I
comfortable
understand.
with, but at the end of the day, like I feel uncomfortable saying a student will 100% get
Yeah.
that opportunity. But I will say some of the students that have went through have experienced a positive outcome on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just it's one of those things you'll have to see when you get through the process. But
Yeah.
I
I,
but
I
I
agree with you
don't
on
bank
that.
on it.
The only thing I could say is, obviously, my route was as a traditional immigrant, having a green card. Now, our community, they'll be coming in as legal refugees, and then
Mhm.
within a year, they would be awarded a green card. Now, in terms of university admissions and FAFSA, all of that stuff, I was able to qualify for financial aid, and I think they would be as well.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about the Bright Futures. This is more of I would say it's a type of scholarship that you get awarded if you do well in the public school system.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
so Bright
yeah.
Futures is for Florida
A
residents.
residence, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I
So
know you will get if you ended up in Florida, I think the minimum amount it's either 6 months to 1 year you can get your Florida residency.
yeah,
Uh,
it's about 12 months in like the educational situation
right.
to prove that you have stayed within the state for 12 months and then you're kind of your residence is here.
Right, right. Yeah, so I guess we'll do a little bit more digging and I'll try and find, more answers in terms of that. But I think you beautifully answered community colleges. I think people, should definitely consider that. Now, in terms of just universities in general, how would you, suggest that parents and students navigate, where do I want to go? How do I apply? I mean, it's obviously there's a lot of money involved in applying to different universities. What do you have any suggestions in terms of that?
The biggest thing is as a family look at what is the reason we are pursuing a university education,
Yeah,
and let's start there, and also talk about what career am I seeking.
right,
Can 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 this university education propel me forward in that career, or is there another option that's cheaper to get me to that point?
right.
Because some students they'll get into the university system and it's just not checking the boxes off. They're not comfortable, and it's not going to work out. So
Right, right.
we always have to start that with that conversation, and be real about it, because it's a huge investment. It's a lot of time, and so when we have the reason, our focus, then now we can start looking at the schools. Then we have the conversation of, okay, what region do I want to go in? So do I
Right.
want to stay close to family? Do I want to go away from family? Do I have friends and family members in another region that might
Yes.
be a little bit more comfortable for me to move close to them and
Right,
use
right.
that system and that state instead of staying at home with my parents? Because students want to spread their wings, and that's okay.
Yeah.
um, and so I'm a big advocate about having a strong social support,
Yeah.
because especially coming to a brand new culture and country, there's a lot of things you have to navigate. And if you're doing it by yourself, it can be a very lonely place. Our U.S. students struggle with this a lot. I've
Yeah.
seen this working in the university system and the state college system for the community college area. We'll have students that do great, but then they get homesick. They don't
Yeah.
connect. They're socially not with everybody, and then they stop out their freshman semester. And it's sad to see, because it's just they didn't have that support. So we have to think about those different questions, and we start answering those things, and then we get that locked in. Then we start looking at okay, who's going to give me the most scholarships? What type of programs do they got? Like, for example, here's a good one. So, if a student is really passionate about medicine and they want to be a medical doctor, here in the
Yeah.
US, we have more advanced, quick programs where a student can go, and it's called a 7-year program for medical
Yeah.
school.
Yep.
So, a student will go in and do 3 years for a bachelor's degree. So, it's accelerated honors,
Yep. Yep.
high stakes. And then on that last year, they jump into medical school. They're pre-admitted. Everything's just synced up,
Right.
and so that is a great opportunity for a student who is an advanced student who's passionate about medicine,
They already
and
know
wants
what
to
they're
push
gonna
forward.
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when we're looking at specialized things, we got to see who's offering that. If we're just looking for something that's just normal, like a business degree, okay,
Yeah.
so we start looking at, okay, who's gonna offer the best experience? Is
Yeah.
it a
Yep.
smaller school where I can be in a business department where I can get mentorship? They have good relationships with different corporate offices where I can have internships, because I always tell students a
Mm-hmm.
degree is a piece of paper. What do you do while you're getting a degree? You can go take classes, go to the dorm, and walk across the stage and graduate. But did you network? Did you talk to your professors who worked in the industry? Did you get an internship? Did you work part time in the
Right.
field that you're interested in? So we have to look at, okay, does that school offer some things to help me start my
My
career
career.
conversation,
Yeah.
so to say, while I'm still in school? And so what we're looking for is what's going to give us the most advantage, because we can take classes anywhere.
Right.
And because of how curriculum is built, it's going to be a very similar curriculum, because when we're talking about colleges and universities, they're accredited through our
Yes.
system here in the U.S., where they have to teach certain things in these classes. So those courses can transfer between universities and colleges. So you could go to a school that's a little bit cheaper and have an excellent experience and just do wonderful, or you could go to a
Mm-hmm.
huge university with lecture
Yeah.
halls of 100 students, get lost in the numbers, and then don't have a good experience because you
Yeah.
feel
Yep.
alone, and then you don't take advantage of things like internships and things like that, because you're just disconnected.
Yep. Yep.
So it's finding your home. I guess that's really what it boils down to. Find some place you're comfortable, find some place that's supportive, because you're going to be living there on campus if you're in a dorm, or you're going to be there for most of your day if you are local and you commute
Right.
back and
Right.
forth. So that's a very important thing that we have to just go and see what's out
Yeah.
there, and then make the decision. And then when we're doing that, we always have to check, like we just talked about a little bit ago, the cost per credit hour.
Yeah.
And then what I always say when a student is looking at these schools, talk to the financial aid office and get the net cost.
Net cost.
what is the
Yeah.
price out the door? So after all of my scholarships, any type of benefit I'm able to get, et cetera, through the FAFSA. And I tell the students, get the two numbers, the one with your federal student loans that the government
Mm,
will give you a cheaper rate student loan to go to
right.
school. Get that number, and then get the number without the loans. What would it cost if you paid whatever it is after your scholarships out of pocket, so that you
Right.
can know,
Right.
like, if something happens, I don't get a loan, what's going to be that cost?
What's going to be the cost? Right. Right.
Yeah, because you don't want a surprise.
No, you definitely do not want a surprise. I think many people may not realize this too, but there are many colleges in the US that are private. And
Mhm.
then, of course, you have your state universities.
Yeah.
And there is quite a big difference,
Mhm.
right? In terms of price as well.
Yes. So on the private side of things in the U.S., they can set their own price. Okay, they're not getting any subsidies from taxes and things like a public school would get.
Yeah.
So they're maintaining their parking lots and roads and buildings and things, and paying faculty and staff. So you'll have a higher cost.
Yeah.
So we're talking, you know. 250 per credit hour, $400 per credit hour at a state institution,
Yeah.
to 800,
Yeah.
1,000 to 2,000 US per credit hour. So you could be taking one class and you could be running a bill of anywhere from 2 to 3,000 to 5,000 per class. So it's easy to run up a bill very quickly at a private school. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
we have to really talk to those schools and say what is the cost of attendance, because they will try to kind of, let's not talk about money right out of the gate. they want
Yeah.
to they want to sell
They're
the
very good at
programs.
doing that. Yes.
Yeah. so
Absolutely.
so I've worked for private institutions, and so we have to be very real with what we're wanting as the consumer in
Yes.
education, and communicate that clearly. And so if it doesn't fit, you need to just go ahead and cut the conversation off and say, we're not going to be able to do that. But a private school can provide a very excellent education to a student who wants something specific. Okay.
Yes.
So, like Florida Southern College that you attended, there are specific programs at Florida Southern that are not offered at any other school in our region.
Yes. That's
And
true.
so, like, they have some really great programs, that if a student is willing to, work on scholarships, manage a little bit of loans, and maybe work part time while they're in school, they're going to get the degree that they want and be able to move into that industry and career field in a fast way, instead
Right.
of looking at, like, well, what's the alternative degree, and maybe I can kind of like go in the side door, as you would
Yes.
say, to a
Yes.
career field. So I call that kind of situation pay to play, because
Pay to
you
play.
are
Yes.
paying that money to get into there in a quick way. But you just have to know you're going to have to make that sacrifice on the forefront. Now, we do have some schools. There's a school in South Florida called Nova Southeastern,
Mm,
and it's a private school. It's very expensive, but they have those type of fast track medical programs.
right. Right.
And they're one of the largest medical schools here in Florida. They offer two different medical tracks. You can be a dentist there, a regular
Right.
medical doctor. You could be I think they offer optometry. I
Optometry. I
think.
think so. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things like that they have, where a student can start their bachelor's degree and then finish that out, and they're already pre-accepted to go into those doctoral
Yep.
professional programs. So there's a lot of cool things like that, that you just have to see, okay, what am I trying to do, what am I passionate about, and am I willing to make that sacrifice? And the other thing about private schools is, they have a different mission, so you have to understand, like, how is that school established. So many of them are fully accredited, just like a public
Right.
school.
Right.
The credits transfer back and forth, no issues with that. So the school that I worked for was Southeastern University, and it's a
Yeah.
Christian based university. Florida Southern is too. Florida Southern is connected to the Methodist Church.
Methodist Church. Yeah.
Southeastern is connected to a Pentecostal organization called the Assemblies of God. And so these schools schools will also offer biblical study courses. And then
Right,
depending
right.
on the school, some schools are a little bit more secular, some are a little bit more religious. So some
Yeah.
schools might require, like a religious university, require a student to attend a chapel time, a service
Yes,
like
yes.
once every so often,
They
things like
sometimes have
that.
some extra rules and
Mhm.
regulations that you would
Yeah.
have to, agree to.
Hmm.
If that's you have to definitely be vigilant. If you're not like in the Christian faith and you want to attend one of these
Yep.
universities, you will be subject to their
Hmm.
rules. Like BYU, I know they have, very, strict rules,
Yep.
etc. So yeah, that's definitely something to consider. If I could segue into whatever you said about religious schools.
Hmm.
Obviously our community mostly is very conservative, very Christian, and I've had some hesitation specifically in relation to, the public education system. We watch the news and, you see a lot of this stuff about gender ideology and all of this. So people have been very weary of public schools. Do you have any advice or any comments, related to that?
So my points will be two levels. So I'll speak to the public, kindergarten through 12th
Right,
grade traditional public school system, and then I'll talk about the universities. So if a regular student that's in your house, that is a student who's under 18, if they're in the public school system in the U.S., what what I will caution parents to do, don't be hands off.
right,
Okay.
right.
Be active if you can. If there's a parent that's a parent that has more availability, if they're at home, taking
Yeah,
care of the young people, or maybe you work part time and and you're more available, volunteer at the school. Attend every school meeting,
yeah, yeah,
um, set up meetings with the teachers, get to know the teacher. You don't have to, bug them, but just, have a meeting, a sit down, have conversations every quarter with the teacher and just check up on your student. Many of our schools, have grade portals so you can kind of check in things, but get to know that teacher because how that teacher teaches in the class, you need to kind of see, are they someone who has a particular ideology? Are they similar to you in faith, et cetera? So you get to know them.
right, right.
Also, it is your right as a parent to have a meeting with the principals, the main principal, the assistant principal, the leadership of the school. You can have a sit down and have a conversation. Um, be aware of what the lessons are. Talk to your student, talk to your child, and establish that openness of where they feel comfortable
Yeah,
talking about what happens at school. I will say for the most part, most of us in education, many of us are very moderate.
yeah,
In regard, the U.S. as a whole is more of a moderate,
yeah,
but there are school districts that I would say are more progressive and liberal. So
yeah, yeah.
so this conversation also goes into where are you going to be at.
Yeah, wherever you
Mhm.
geographically end up being. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So like in our district, we're more of a conservative district. There's not going to be any of this major conversation going on as you see in the news.
Right,
Some of those things are a little bit outliers, I will say, because
right.
you got to keep in mind that the political conversation in the U.S. is very strained, and that
Yes.
there's a lot of loud voices on the left and a lot of loud voices on the right, and so they're screaming
And
at
I
each
think you
other.
see kind of like the
Yeah.
worst of the worst make
Yeah.
the news.
Hmm.
And then, people take that, and
Yeah.
it's with good reason. I mean,
Hmm.
South Africa is like also, very volatile country, and there's a lot of very bad things going on there. So it's easy to look at a different country and go, oh my goodness, I guess, it's the same kind of setup. And yeah, like you said, it's definitely regional, but it's not as bad as what people may think it is. Just
Yeah.
looking at the news, exactly.
Hmm. And so within our public system, you have a right as a parent to review the curriculum that's being taught in the school.
Right.
You can attend meetings for the school district board, and you can go up to the podium and you have a right to speak on a subject and question why is this being offered in our schools, et cetera.
Right.
So those things are available. And so I encourage everyone to be active, have
Yeah.
meetings, know what's going on in class, know the curriculum, get a feel for the school because every school has their own kind of culture that's set by the leadership of the school.
Yeah.
And you'll get to know, like, is this a school a little bit more left leaning? Is it more conservative, right leaning?
Yeah.
Um, I will say a lot of the teachers that I taught with were people of faith,
Yes.
or at least more moderate, even
Yeah.
if they had a more of a liberal progressive view.
Yeah.
They understood that we are here to serve our community,
Right.
and so
Right.
we have to really be mindful of our political views and things, and just try to stay in the middle. The kids I taught when I was in the classroom, they didn't know what side I was on. They were always asking, "Who are you voting for?" and everything. And I always
Right.
kept my conversations in the middle and respected everyone. And my class was
Yeah.
a class that everyone was comfortable to talk about things.
Yeah.
So what's very important is your home life. Establish with your children what is our family's culture? What do we believe in? What are the things that are important
Yeah.
to us? And so if your child is in the classroom and something is off and that
Yeah.
teacher is getting too far into personal things or political
Yes.
things, your child should have enough understanding is say, that's making me uncomfortable, teacher.
Yeah.
I, I don't want to talk about those things.
Yes.
And then if the teacher doesn't respect your child, that your child will come to you at home and say, "Hey, this happened in the classroom," and then you in turn can have a meeting with the teacher. And if then that's not
Yeah.
resolved, then you have a right as a parent to have a meeting not only with the teacher but also the school administrators and
Right.
bring
Right.
that forward. And so so I always am advocating for parents to know their rights. And I encourage my students to, as a student, you need to know your rights. So if something makes you uncomfortable, that is a no-go here in the U.S. Every student, no matter what their political persuasion,
Right.
religious persuasion, or any of the other ideologies that we can list, that student is here to get a education and not to
Right.
be indoctrinated by anything. So we just have to be vigilant about these things, but know that if there's things that happen every so often. Like I said, there's a lot of outliers that have
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
It's not the norm in our system. And at my school, we don't have any kind of ridiculousness stuff like that you see in the news going on. Usually, that's districts that there's not decent leadership. But we in
Yeah.
my area, we've got good leaders. And so school is about education. So that's my key thing for parents in the regular school system. I'll end that for the regular public schools on this. Be your teacher's friend, be your
Yeah.
administrator's friend, because you will get more out of that friendliness, being a
Yes.
bridge builder, having those conversations, and telling your child's teacher, your child's administrator, how can I support our school? Because we're
Absolutely.
in the community together.
Right.
And
Right.
so, is there anything, can I be a chaperone for a field trip, or maybe a school dance, or activity can I volunteer and help? Is there any school supplies for students who are
Right.
disadvantaged? Can I buy another pack of crowns or pencils and
Yes.
have it there? Because we do have like school pantries and supply closets, as we call them, for students who need something. So when you advocate not only for your child but also the children of your community, you will be seen in a very positive light.
Yeah.
And as educators, we love that because we are not trying to be an adversary. We want to come together with you to
Yeah.
make things good.
100%.
And so that's my biggest point, because when a concern comes up, you'll be looked at as a positive person
Yeah.
who has a valid point, instead of that's the parent that's complaining about everything.
Yeah, having
And
a good
yeah.
relationship with the teachers, I think, is paramount. And
Mhm.
like you said, being involved and paying attention to your child's curriculum, just being an active community member, I think is key in
Mhm.
terms of that.
Yeah.
Um,
So now the conversation flips when we get to college and university level.
yeah,
So you as the parent, there's federal education laws. You cannot talk to professors as a parent. You cannot look at your child's student records as a parent. Everything is separate because your child is an adult learner.
right, right.
Now, there is a form that you can fill out in the school's office, the registrar's office, and in the records area, that you can sign, and your child as an adult learner can sign and say, I want my parent to have access to these records, which I do. If you have a good relationship with your child.
Yeah.
I encourage the students to do that, so that if there's ever a time a parent needs to kind of help advocate, that
Yeah.
that is on record, so you can, talk to your
You're able to
student,
do that.
talk
Yeah.
to administrators. But as a rule of thumb, professors usually do not talk to parents at all.
Yeah.
It's
I
far
can
and few between
imagine.
I've ever seen that. um, at the university level, it's a open, what we call the open marketplace of ideas. And so dialogue is going to happen in many different ways. So a student needs to be prepared that you will have some conversations that are not comfortable sometimes,
Yeah.
but to be able to have enough strength and conviction to stand firm on your beliefs, but
Yes.
understand that for that particular class, that professor might have that kind of view. Now, if this is where this gets into what's going on in the news, and this does happen. I have seen it, and I've had to help students navigate this, in several different jobs that I've been at.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I experienced this in a class as a student myself. If you are doing an assignment, or something happens and you have your personal opinion about a political thing, an ideology, a belief, and you're standing firm and like, I don't agree with that, etc., and a professor is penalizing you on any
Because of your
things
belief.
like that,
Yeah.
try to work it out with the professor, document it, send an email, okay, and state your concerns and ask for a meeting, a sit down meeting, because they have office hours they're legally
Right.
required to have per their contract. Try to work it out with a professor. If a professor gives a student a bad grade on assignment because of their viewpoint, then I tell the student, after you have had that conversation and request for a resolution, if nothing is done,
Yeah.
then you have the right as a student, because you're paying money to be
Right.
educated,
Of
to
course.
take it to the academic dean, the head of the department of academics, who's the boss of the professor, and let them know I have an issue. Also include your student services, your advisor, like would be me,
Yeah.
and then I would fill out appropriate paperwork. I would have an email string connecting the deans and the professor, et cetera. And then we can have that conversation to have a resolution. So I'm always encouraging students, do not let this stuff go under the radar.
Yeah.
Bring it up to who needs to know, and have those conversations, because you should not have any issues in class or have any issues with assignment because you have a difference of opinion. So that's a
100%.
little bit of the differences between the two. On the one hand, parents can be very active, but on the university side,
Yeah.
the student needs to have their own
Pretty much
convictions
advocate
and
for
everything,
themselves.
and,
Yep.
and be out there and be ready for it. But I will say, for the most part, like at a community college, you won't have that kind of stuff happening as much at all, as you would at a major university.
Yeah, I agree
And
with you on
yeah,
that. Yeah, I
so
found
this
that
is a lot
mostly
different.
you get that kind of issue with either very large public, mostly public schools, honestly. The private colleges are, they've got a lot of donors and stuff too, so they try and be very neutral because, whoever's giving them, any money, they don't want to, step on anyone's toes, so they really do
Mhm.
try and be more neutral in
Yeah.
terms of that.
And the community college professors, a lot of times it's a next step in career for a high
Yeah,
school teacher. So a lot of the people that teach at a community college might have taught, 5, 10 years ago at the high school level. So they take that thought and culture with them, of not focusing on all the other
yeah,
stuff, but focusing on curriculum and why I'm here to teach.
right.
That's a positive, I guess you could say, another positive about community colleges, because you have that type of atmosphere. Yep.
100%. I agree with you. I want to jump into one more question and then I'll let you, kind of just give us a little bit of general advice to end our conversation with. It's been really amazing having you on. I'm very grateful for you.
No
Um,
problem.
yeah, absolutely. So we do have a couple of members that have mentioned that they have students, that are in high school. I don't know, some may be middle school, primary school, that have special needs. You can think of, various special needs, children, autism, etc. Are there resources available for children like that in the public school setting?
Absolutely. We have in my opinion, we have a very robust system that provides a lot of opportunity for students with disabilities. Also, there is specific departments or offices set up at the community college and university level. So if a student has a need, they have a disability or something that needs to be addressed medically or whatever, those offices can help the adult learner navigate
Yeah.
those things. So like at a university level, let's say someone who needs extra time on
Yeah.
testing, they have test anxiety and they've been diagnosed with things, or they're autistic and then they need a quiet environment because distractions are
Yeah.
tough for them, things like that. So there's a lot of things that they can get at the university level. Now, I always say university because that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
at the college level.
Naturally.
But in the regular public school arena, from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, a student will need to be medically diagnosed, et cetera,
Yeah.
have all their medical paperwork, and they will be tracked, and all their medical paperwork will follow them through the whole time they're in school. So
Right.
there's different levels. I'll try not to get into the weeds of it, but um, there is what we would call self-contained classrooms, where students that have a higher disability, where they might be developmentally
Yeah.
disabled or have some very major medical issues. Our education system has special teachers that are fully trained, fully certified how to educate that child, and so that they can go through as far as they can go through our education
Right.
system. And so some students might not have a full high school diploma. They might have like an equivalency type degree or a
Yeah.
diploma of attendance and things. So the focus on those harder cases to navigate would be more of like how to help that child grow and develop and
Yeah.
reach their full potential, and to be able to achieve those activities of daily living, and be able to be a part of
100%.
society as far as they could go. For students who are like mentally challenged, but maybe could still work a job.
Yeah.
Our goal is to get them through the system to help them grow, reach those benchmarks of
Yeah.
development and child development, and then when they get to the high school level, we're helping them train like how, like basic things like how to cook at home, how
Right.
to fold clothes, how to count money, and things like that. And then we can transition them after they graduate into like a regular normal job and
Yeah.
be a part of the community. They might not be able to live by themselves, but they
Yeah.
can, work at the grocery store, bag groceries, maybe work at a plant nursery and plant plants and set
Yeah.
them up and things. So there's a lot of really cool things that we have in programs here. Now, for children who are having a slight disability, but it's not a developmentally disabled to where
Yeah.
it's a harder challenge, we can stream them into the normal classroom, and so they'll have a plan. So as a teacher, I had a number of those children in my classroom, and so we have different teams. It's called ESC in some districts, exceptional student education. So it's
Okay.
also students that have disabilities and also the other spectrum, the more
Right.
gifted. And so as a teacher, we'll have their information, and then we'll know how to teach that student. So we'll know,
Yeah.
okay, this student has anxiety, or this student, needs extra time in testing, or
Right.
they
Right.
might they have a medical issue. Like I had some students who had some major medical issues, so I knew what was going on. I might need to have like educational packets because they might have to go to the doctor and surgery and stuff. And so each school, many times, like when I was teaching, we had a coordinator who would
Right.
oversee all of those students, and they had their own secretary in the office. And so they made sure that there was periodical meetings with a parent, the maybe a medical representative or
Yeah.
social worker, and then the child's teacher. So we all knew what needed to take place so that child would have the appropriate education in regards to what was going on with them. So so there's a lot in place. Um, we in the public system, we have like school psychologists on site. We have social workers on site. Sometimes the district may not have them like assigned to certain schools, so there'll be certain days that are different schools.
I
So
see. Yeah.
so there's a support system for these children so that they don't get lost. Okay, so that's the big thing I want to emphasize with the parents
Yeah.
is um, the public system, depending on your child's disability or developmental disability, et cetera, might be the best place. And then that's where you can get the most out of the educational experience, and you can be a part of it and advocate. Where a charter school or a
Yeah.
private school might not have those supports, because you have to keep in mind those schools are supported sometimes with outside funds, where the
Yes.
public system is supported by federal and state funding.
Right. So they
So
have a little bit more
having
robust
everything. Mhm.
resources, I guess, to address those kinds of needs. Yeah.
And we have on-site school nurses, et cetera. So, if a child has to have medications at certain times, you know, I would give a student a hall pass and they can go down to the nurse's office in the main administrative wing of the school. And then the nurse will have that medication, and she's certified as a nurse to provide that medication. Maybe it not has to stay in a fridge. So they'll have a little fridge in the clinic and things.
Right.
And so that child will be taken care of. So that's the thing when a parent is coming in with a special student like that, to find a good district that has those opportunities, because some districts have more than others. Okay, so
Right.
depending on the student's need, we really have to have those conversations, and then to be active, because you never want your child to lose out just because you weren't active and didn't realize that there were resources available. So
Right. Right.
that's why going to teacher meetings, school meetings, know your resources in the community, because there's so much out there. But sad to say, sometimes it's not communicated as effectively as it
Yep.
should.
I
So
agree.
I
I
agree with
agree.
you.
For me as well, when I came here, I didn't know of half of the things that I could have, utilized to help me with my own education. So that's really my goal, is to, give people more resources, talk to as many people as I can to help people make an informed decision. At the end of the day, too, like I've spoken to a lady who is an expert in homeschooling. She knows everything about homeschooling. A lot of people are very interested in that, and I figured, okay, I'll talk to you. I know you have a lot of experience in, the public school system and universities. So, at the end of the day, it's their decision to make, but to provide them with the resources, yeah, or at least the knowledge of whatever is out there is, I think, is very important. So, if you can leave us with, something, Bradley, anything you think that could be helpful to our community, or anything you would like to say, floor's yours.
Yeah. All right. So I'll touch on some things that I did touch on earlier, and then I'll kind of wrap things up.
Sure.
So the systems that we have here, there's so much opportunity. This truly is the land of opportunity. I have to say, as a citizen, I'm proud of what we have, and I'm proud of what we can offer others that come to us. And being a part of this, I can definitely say, we've got our prickly pear moments, as they say, but there's so much good that comes from what we have. But at the same time, we have to be active. That's
Right.
the key. You mentioned homeschooling. That is a thing that has really taken off here in the U.S. If parents and the family as a whole decides that that's the right way to go, pursue it. Okay, um, because there's so much opportunity that and there's so many ways that you can integrate your
Yeah.
homeschooling with the public system. As a community member, your child will have access to a public class. Maybe your child wants to take a physical education class with the students in their community. They can go take that one class and then come home.
Right.
Maybe take a Spanish or German class or whatever foreign language. They can go do that. They might want to participate in after school sports. That's available to homeschoolers. Um, so there's different roles in the districts and stuff, but that's available. Here in Florida, we have Florida Virtual School, so a student can take their classes online through Florida Virtual School, get a Florida high school diploma, but be at home.
Right.
And we also have within different districts, they might have their own online way of doing that. There's different private schools that will support a homeschooler, and so they'll come under the umbrella. And sometimes people just do their own curriculum. Maybe a parent has a background in education, has a higher level degree, and feels that they could do that. That's excellent too. And you can partner with your school district and take those standardized tests that the other students do. And so your student is homeschooled, but then you're taking
Right.
those benchmark tests and being in the system that way. And then also another thing, I can't remember if I mentioned it, through the College Board, which is the administrator of the SAT test, they
Yeah.
also have things called CLEP tests. Okay. And in high school, there's also classes that are called advanced placement classes, AP classes that we offer, and they have tests too. CLEP tests and AP tests provide college credits. Okay.
Ah,
So if you're a homeschooler, I always say when you're going through your curriculum with your mom or dad, whoever's teaching you, and you get to the end of your history course and stuff, or maybe your mathematics course is done, and you know, like I really feel I can take that test and pass it, go ahead and do it
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and get that college credit and a stat and if you choose to go into high school and go from homeschool to high school, you've got this CLEP test done that shows you're at that benchmark level. Maybe you've
Right.
already taken ACT, SAT. So anyways, I won't belabor that point on homeschool, but I'll just say there's lots of opportunity. Don't
Right.
fear about that. Most districts will have a homeschool office where you can connect with your school district, notify them that your child is going to be a homeschooler, and they'll help you navigate the paperwork and stuff to have that established. And especially across the nation, there's a lot of good homeschooling groups that you can get with. I have family members that have homeschooled their children, and you can connect with others in your community. Maybe you're not good at teaching math, and maybe a parent in the homeschool group teaches math very well. And
Right.
so you just meet up at the
Like those,
library or the
I
community
think they
center.
call it, is it like co-ops, I
Yeah,
think?
co-ops. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to connect, have community, be able to meet other students that are homeschooled, et cetera. So I encourage that. In education, there's so many different things to choose from. Find what best fits your student, where they'll
Right.
flourish. And I'm going to tell you, I have homeschool students that come to us at 11th grade, and they just go leaps and bounds,
Right.
and they finish out our curriculum here, and then they go to the university system and they just do excellent. So there's nothing to look down on homeschool.
Right.
For some of my years, I was homeschooled myself, so I can definitely speak to that. It is what you do with what you have
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
determines your success. So if you don't put a lot of effort in, your child will
Yeah.
suffer. But if you put effort in, they will flourish because you can focus on things that really speak to them, other than sitting in a classroom in rows and the teachers saying the same stuff to everybody, and you don't get that individualized
Right. Right.
focus. The other thing I did want to talk about, because I didn't mention, there's another education opportunity that we have here is our technical colleges, our trade schools.
Technical colleges.
Oh,
Yep.
they are like I would guess I say cousins or sisters to our community colleges. Um, they are usually always run by our local school district. The
Okay.
two that are in our local community is our one school is called Travis Technical College, and another one called Ridge Technical College. And so what they do is they provide the trades. Like if someone wants to be an auto mechanic, work on air conditioning, heating and
Yep.
cooling systems, maybe they want to go in the construction trade and be a contractor. That's a
Yeah.
quick way. Maybe be a licensed practical nurse. So that's like one of the first nursing levels. Maybe the student wants to go into like a basic computer networking thing. Maybe someone wants to be a barber. That's a great job, or a hairstylist, etc. So they provide like your career trade focused
I see.
things, and it usually it's about a year. And just so everyone knows, you can use federal funding. The FAFSA can be used at these schools.
That's
Um,
amazing. I think a
and
lot of people did ask me about that. We do have a lot of people that are very interested in trades, and something I've also advocated for. You don't necessarily need to have a strictly college degree in the US to succeed. There's just so many opportunities. A lot of people that are in trades, they always have a job. They get paid handsomely for those jobs,
yes, very.
actually. So this is definitely something that I think a lot of people will want to know about. Yeah, for sure.
And so my caution with those things is make sure it is one of those types of schools that's supported by the school district and accredited that way. and has the appropriate accreditations for those industries, because there are for-profit private trade schools
Mm, mm.
that are not fully accredited. You go through their program, the credits don't transfer to anything,
Yeah.
and you might not be able to sit for that national or state licensure
Tests. Yeah.
test. So big caution on that, because I
Okay.
have advised students that have went and done that to those like non certified
Five
schools,
months.
and they've wasted so much money. So for comparison, like those schools might charge a student, $20,000 USD to be a medical assistant, but they
Wow.
could go to, and then they say, oh, you've got a 2-year degree because they added all these classes and stuff, and they don't have the same opportunity because that school wasn't really certified or licensed
Right.
correctly as going to our local trade school that's supported by our public school district, where they might have paid maybe $5,000 USD, $6,000 for the same education
Yeah.
within 9 months to a year, and they're able to pass their national test. So just a big caution. But I do want to say that's a great opportunity, and sometimes those programs go into our community college programs. And so, for example, like the fire safety program where someone becomes a fireman, they could take those certifications and come over here to our state college. And then we
Mm,
have an associate of science degree, a 2-year degree that'll connect to those licenses and certifications. And then that person can have an associate of science degree and
mm.
their fire certifications for the state of Florida. And so that enables them to climb in rank, and they can be like a lieutenant or a captain
I see.
within the fire station, instead of just being a regular fireman paramedic. So there's some cool opportunities there. And then some of the community colleges do have some similar trade programs. Like we have what's called it's like an applied engineering program.
Mm,
So
mm.
like somebody want to work for like Coca-Cola
Right.
or like a food manufacturing plant, they can be an engineer that works on those big conveyor systems and mixing vats and things like that. It's very technical, and you can make a lot of money. My father has a friend who does that job, and he was trained in one of those programs. He makes close to $100,000 a year with like
Wow.
overtime and working nights and things like that. And like I said, the basic trades that we were talking about, that's the norm that every community across the world needs: electricians, plumbers, auto
Yeah.
mechanics. You can take those trades, and then you can go to the community college and get a little bit of a business degree, and then you can run your own business and be a
Right.
business
Right.
owner, or work for a company and be a manager within those areas, and make some serious money. I always tell students, if they're interested in that, they can make more money doing some of those things than a counterpart that goes to university. They're making money
100%.
within a year, and that person's going for 4 years in university. So a little tip there. So um, overall, in this whole process, um, as I say, life is what you make it.
Yeah.
If you view things in a negative, that's what you'll receive. If you view
Yeah.
things in a positive, that's what you'll receive. That the universe returns what you put out. So within this, looking at education, let's not be overwhelmed by what's in the news and the
Yeah.
challenges and things.
Agreed.
Let's look at the opportunities. What's the new things that are coming up? What are the most needed jobs right now? The U.S. really needs the more technical
Yes.
type degrees and the trades and things, and it's not so much like work smarter, not harder.
Mm.
It's work smarter and harder. So
Yes.
sometimes having a trade and a degree is going to be the win.
Right.
So we have to look at where's the need, and how, as a student, can I fill that need and meet my requirements of what I need for a career and
Right.
livelihood. Um, so
Exactly.
so when we're looking at those things, we have to do some like self, thinking, what do I truly want out of life? What am I willing to sacrifice? Those types of conversations. And I always encourage students and families to be very real about this stuff. Not everybody's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. I've seen
Absolutely.
students sit in my office, and their parents are pushing them to get those professional degrees. And it's not the student's not smart; they're just not passionate about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're
That's
going
very
to,
important.
yeah, if you're an engineering program and calculus is just, you hate it, but you can do it, but you hate it, you're not going to be successful.
Yep,
And
100%.
so it's finding those niche areas that our community, our nation needs, and then seeing which one fits you, and then hitting it full force. And like I said, there's so much opportunity if we align a student's passion, align where they're at academically, and then guide them through gently, not forcefully, but let them grow and mature, and then be their advocate as a parent. You will see a student that will blossom and grow,
Mm,
and you will have the outcome that you are wanting for your family. That's where I want to encourage you to just really see it through to the end. Because when I see parents that are with their students in meetings, who are, constantly supporting them, anything they need, supplies, opportunities, extracurricular things, that student has such of a positive outlook.
yes,
Because I always thought, it's a cliche thing, it's like you can do whatever you want to do. But, we have to understand our limitations. But it is absolutely true. If you have a passion, you want to do something, the opportunity is
yeah,
here. And even myself, I look back when I was younger, there's so much more available now than ever
yeah,
before. There's programs and things that were never available 20 years ago that I would have never even thought of doing as a student.
right, right,
And I'm advising stuff where it's like, wow, if this student does these couple of classes and gets the certification, they could be making 50, 60,000 in just a couple years. If they
right,
get their master's degree and get a higher level, computer software position, they could be making over 200,000 in cybersecurity. So there's a lot of things where you just find that niche the student's interested in, find the opportunities to where you can get scholarships and get things covered, and then just do the steps and be diligent
yep,
about it. So,
100%.
yeah,
Well, Bradley, this was incredibly informative. I think people are gonna eat up this interview. I'm very excited to post it, but if anyone has any more questions, would it be okay to, maybe share your email privately with, students
sure.
if a
Yeah,
need comes up
absolutely.
like that? I
Mhm.
think there's a lot to, digest. We talked about a bunch of things, technical colleges, charter schools, public schools, universities, everything. So I think, it's a lot to take in, but I think you covered everything quite brilliantly, and people have, I think most of the resources they need to make an informed decision, especially, pairing that with my other interview I did about, homeschooling. I think that that's a pretty broad area people can look at, so I just wanted to thank you.
You're welcome.
And hopefully we can, talk again about this stuff.
Absolutely.
So yes, just wanted to thank you for your time. I think I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll, just chat a little bit with you. Sounds good. All right, let's see here.